Lena thought she was doing everything right. She learned to be agreeable, to shrink her own needs, to never be too much. She was just trying to be the woman everyone said a man wanted. But the more she tried, the less he seemed to see her. It felt like he was looking right through her, searching for a version of a woman she could never be. It wasn't until his family's harmless comment at dinner that she understood the devastating truth. The things she was trying to fix were the very things that made her who she was. What did they say that made her finally see the game was rigged? For Lena, loving Mark felt like a full-time job. He was charismatic and successful, moving through the world with an easy confidence she admired. Her life, by contrast, had always been one of vibrant color, loud laughter, and expressive opinions. A world that felt fundamentally different from his. Early on, she learned to file down her edges to fit into his life. He never demanded it, but he would offer suggestions wrapped in care. He'd call her passionate debates a little intense for his friends, or her natural, beautiful curls a bit unprofessional for a work event. So she learned to become a softer, quieter version of herself. She practiced holding back her first thought, offering a milder, more agreeable one instead. Each change was a tiny sacrifice, a small piece of herself traded for his approval. Tonight was the ultimate performance, Sunday dinner at his parents' sprawling, silent home. As she straightened the seams on a conservative dress she never would have chosen for herself, a wave of anxiety washed over her. She wasn't just meeting his family, she was auditioning for a role she wasn't sure she could play, and the dread felt like a stone in her stomach. Mark kissed her cheek, telling her she looked perfect, but she just felt perfectly fake. The house was beautiful in the way a museum is beautiful, perfect, untouchable, and cold. Mark's parents, the Andersons, greeted Lena with smiles that were surgically precise. Dinner was a quiet affair, the clinking of silverware against porcelain echoing in the cavernous dining room. Lena sat straight, her rehearsed anecdotes and polite laughter feeling hollow in her own ears. The first cut was subtle. Mrs. Anderson, after hearing Lena speak about her career in marketing, remarked how surprisingly articulate she was. The word hung in the air. Lena felt a familiar sting, the sting of being seen as an exception. But she smiled, just as Mark had coached her to. The conversation drifted to family heritage. Mark's father proudly traced their lineage back to stoic Norwegian fishermen, their history displayed in sterile black and white photos on the mantel. When Lena spoke of her own family, of lively reunions filled with spicy food, booming laughter, and dancing that shook the floorboards, a thin veil of condescension fell over the table. "How festive," her mother commented, her tone suggesting it was anything but. Lena felt Mark's hand on her thigh, a gentle squeeze meant to be comforting, but it felt like a warning. Don't be too much. Stay small. She was trying. She was swallowing her passionate rebuttals, dulling her own vibrant history to make it more palatable for them. Then the conversation turned to the future. Mrs. Anderson looked at Mark, then let her eyes settle on Lena's hair, which she had painstakingly straightened for this very occasion, erasing its natural tight curls. "You two would have such beautiful children, and we would just pray they get Mark's hair. Something more manageable, you know?" The world stopped. The carefully constructed facade Lena had built shattered into a million pieces. It wasn't just a comment about hair. It was a judgment on her heritage, her body, her very DNA. It was a declaration that the core of who she was, the parts she had been told were unprofessional or intense, was fundamentally undesirable. She turned her head slowly, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, looking at Mark. Her eyes were screaming, begging him to defend her, to draw a line, to say anything. But he just offered a weak, tight-lipped smile. "Mom, don't be silly," he chuckled, before seamlessly changing the subject to his recent golf game. His betrayal was not in the shouting, but in the silence. It was a silence so profound, it drowned out every loving word he had ever said. She finally understood. She wasn't just being asked to change, she was being asked to be erased. A sudden sharp clarity ripped through the haze of her anxiety. The room, the polished silver, the strained smiles, it all felt like a suffocating performance. She looked at Mark, his face unreadable, still focused on his father's monotone story. He had seen his family's casual cruelty, felt the cold weight of their prejudice, and had chosen to side with the comfort of his own ignorance. His silence was the loudest betrayal she had ever experienced. It was the confirmation that she was not a partner, but a project to be molded into something acceptable. She felt the full weight of the sacrifices she had made, the vibrant laughter she had quieted, the opinions she had censored, the natural curls she had flattened. All for this moment, this cold indifference. She had believed that changing herself would unlock his love, but in reality, it had only diminished her. The injustice felt suffocating. They weren't rejecting her. They were rejecting the very history and identity she carried in her bones. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The less of herself she showed, the less worthy they saw her. Lena took a slow, deep breath, her hands steady. She placed her napkin precisely on the table. The scrape of the chair against the hardwood floor was a shockingly loud declaration. Every eye at the table turned to her. She didn't speak, didn't explain. She looked at Mark, a ghost of a look that conveyed a world of disappointment, before turning away. She walked past the black and white photos of his ancestry, the silent judgments that permeated the room, and headed for the door. She was not running. She was reclaiming the power she had given away. The air outside was cold, but for the first time in a long time, she could breathe. Mark's text messages came in a flood that night, a series of frantic, then angry, then dismissive justifications. He called her dramatic. He said she had overreacted and embarrassed him. Not once did he acknowledge the venom in his mother's words or the chilling emptiness of his own silence. And in that moment, Lena felt a profound peace. His reaction wasn't a surprise. It was the final piece of evidence she needed. The love she had been fighting for was not real. It was conditional, and the condition was that she ceased to be herself. The next morning, Lena stood in front of her mirror. For the first time, she wasn't assessing her flaws or strategizing how to be more acceptable. She simply looked. She washed away the performance of the night before and watched as her natural curls sprang back to life, coiling tightly in beautiful defiance. It was more than hair. It was a reclamation. She finally understood the 4 things that truly kill your worth. She stopped shrinking her personality to make someone else comfortable. She stopped presenting a filtered version of her heritage for their approval. She stopped altering her physical self to fit a narrow, prejudiced standard of beauty. And most importantly, she stopped accepting silence in the face of injustice as a form of love. Lena's story isn't just about a bad dinner. It's about the 1,000 subtle cuts that women, especially women of color, are expected to endure. It's about the quiet pressure to be less ethnic, less passionate, less you. So I ask you, what parts of yourself are you being asked to erase for someone else's comfort? And is a love that costs you your own identity worth the price?